Thank you, and welcome. And as I've arrived today, I've found myself very transfixed by the idea of navigating. You know, you get off the train and then you try and think, is it really worth a taxi? I know it's not that far. I looked in Google, can I walk? Yes, I probably could, but I might not get there, so I'll get in a taxi. And the whole idea of navigation seems to be dominating my thoughts at the moment, not least because Sam Taylor had to help me navigate to find where to put my suitcase when I got here. And I realised just how uneasy you feel in new environments when you don't feel secure around navigation, and how navigation is so important to us. I've also been reflecting prior to putting this together on how the hyperlink has changed our lives. And that was, again, another moment when I caught myself thinking, as I was driving behind a queue of traffic, I need to be at the supermarket now, because I've got to be somewhere else after that. If only I could just click a link, and I could jump all this traffic and be there. And my life has been so dominated by my virtual identity for quite a while now, that somehow in my head that seemed reasonable. That seemed quite doable. I want to think a little bit, and it's very contextually specific, I realise that, but I hope it's going to have lots and lots of thoughts as well for you that are transferable around the role of Mahara in helping our students and our staff become more able to navigate online and to feel less of the culture shock. My role is very much in language teaching. I've been a language teacher for 30 years now. So I regularly navigate between French and English, and I've had the delight to be able to do that whilst I've been here this morning as well. And I think there's a very strong parallel between navigating the digital environment and the changes that have happened since Web 2, and navigating the physical environment and the changes that happened since the advent of air travel, and since the advent of being able to get on a plane and end up a few hours later on the other side of the world. The whole experience that you have is very similar, and it's quite a nice sort of analogy, I think, to think about. The reason we have a very military-looking first slide here is because computer-assisted language learning, as it is, and it's a discipline that has existed for as long as I've been teaching, was really dominated and informed by the development of military technology. So it's the age-old play on the advert, you know, join the military, travel to interesting places, meet interesting people and kill them, that unfortunately became the driver for language learning technologies, because the military realised very quickly that communication is vital, good communication is vital, and good communication within a foreign land with a different culture, where you hopefully don't kill everybody, but hopefully you're there for a positive reason as well, was very important. So a good deal of financial assistance, shall we say, went into developing good learning technologies for languages through the computer-assisted language learning community. I was lucky enough to be at Eurocall, which is the community's annual conference in Padua in the summer. And there we were looking at a shift in computer-assisted language learning, which is particularly focusing on computer-mediated communication. It's not rare, and in a place like this, I completely expect you to be very familiar, and I've been seeing in the back channel that you're very familiar with computer-mediated communication. So in terms of our teaching skills for foreign languages, we need to know how this environment affects our learners. We need to be sufficiently cognizant of the experience of computer-mediated communication as educators in order to help guide our students and look at the sort of skills that are required to navigate the digital landscape. And I'm going to come back to our sort of tourist and airplane image, really. You turn up in a foreign country, we've all done it. Fortunately, there are 3 languages I speak, so many of the countries I visit I can find my way through. But I still find myself sometimes in countries like Germany where I still have to make animal noises to be clear that I'm not going to get something that will trigger an allergy for my son. And I'm very aware of that destabilising feeling. of being in an environment where you don't know the right way to behave, that you don't necessarily know the word that you need, you don't necessarily know how to behave appropriately. And these sort of skills and others are key in managing those sort of experiences. Now, I'm on Twitter at Warwick Language. I actually timed my tweets to be going out now on the back channel for this presentation. So I'm hoping you'll be able to pick up some of the links from at Warwick Language if you keep an eye on that, Mahara UK. I think I've been using the hashtag Mahara Hui UK 15, so it's longer than it needs to be, but if you have a look at that Twitter stream, you'll be able to pick up some of the additional resources around skills in particular that I thought about as I examined this digital navigation theme. So in terms of technical skills, and obviously as a lot of learning technologists are in the room, technical skills maybe are the most crucial, the ones that you're focusing on particularly. You're thinking about people who can manage passwords, people who can go into new environments and still navigate and understand and find their way round. And I think most of us in this room will have experience of how tricky it is to get people to change their behaviour when they move into a new digital environment. How difficult it is to tell them, oh yeah, but the hamburger menu now is on the right instead of the left. I think, oh, for goodness sake, stop moving things around. It's like going into a supermarket and everybody's switched the shelves. You know, they really don't want that complexity. And for some, they will leave at that point. Others will tell you, no, I've lost my password, or I can't remember my username. And you know, you think, but you don't forget how to get your money out of the bank whenever you need to. So maybe there's a prioritising role that has to go on here. But all of these things are pretty crucial and fundamental to people, and changing people's behaviour is hard. So what I'm focusing on is how we surface individuals' abilities to self-regulate and to be more autonomous and not to be so dependent on other people guiding them. And I think those skills are crucial. A degree of autonomy, an ability to reflect, and the Mahara bell should be ringing at this point. Yeah, because being autonomous, being able to reflect, being able to analyse, and being able to collaborate, all of these things are really well supported in Mahara. Now, the paper, which hopefully you've just seen and I've tweeted, comes from Chickering and Gamson. If you're on Amazon, get yourself Chickering's updated theory of identity, which is in a book called Education and Identity, recently been revised in 1993. It describes policies and practices that will foster a broad-based development of human talent necessary for 21st century. Lots of really good stuff in there, but it points to these forces. Now, I'm no physicist, but I know that I can't see forces. They act outside of me, and I know that if I drop that, it's going to fall, because that's the way physics works. These forces are things that we don't necessarily see, and often we don't see enough of, and they're often restricted or regulated by powers beyond us. So the nature of these forces and how much they are able to play a part in our classroom situations often can depend on political decisions that are made elsewhere. But these are important forces to think about. When we think about learning design, when we think about how we help our undergraduate students acquire great skills, these 7 principles arose bearing in mind those forces. So great undergraduate education should encourage contact between students and faculty, develop reciprocity. That's really key, that's really important, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Use active learning techniques, give prompt feedback, emphasise time on task, communicate high expectations, and here's where Haiku Deck lets me down because I'm an Android user, I'm not an Apple person. Respect diverse talents and ways of thinking you should be seeing on there. But these tensions are again things we are familiar with navigating. You know, again, we'll have faculty who are less familiar and who will throw their hands up and say, if I can't do it on my iPad, I don't want to know. I don't want to worry about whether it works across platform. I want them to worry about working across platform. Not everybody can afford Apple. Now, there's a set of project pages, and I made a nice little scannable QR code, which you're not going to be able to read, so I'm going to open them for you here. But hopefully you'll have seen them. Oh, that's interesting. That's not the one that I was going to open. Now, this is my scary moment, because 3 students of mine who only sort of met me for the first time a couple of weeks ago, at the end of my class, I said, look, any of you interested in doing a little bit of non-assessed, non-rewarded work for me using a Mahara e-portfolio to share some of your great insights into language learning with others? And the reciprocity came in. I'll get you a coffee and we'll have a chat about it. Yeah, okay, they said, and they came along to my office and I showed them the pages that I'd set up for them. So let me show you the students who kindly stepped in. We have Gertrude, she's from Hungary, she's a first-year sociologist. We have Freddie, he's in his final year on a business schools course. And we have Wang Zhe down here, also in social sciences. Interested enough to say yes to putting some content into 2 blank Mahara pages. So they volunteered. They're in an accelerated learning class. And what I want to do is to tell you a little bit about the feedback that I got from them. And I sort of really explored why they wanted to take part in the first place. Now, this is a work in progress. This collection will be open during my accelerated course over the next 10, 12 weeks or so. So you can see what they did was they showed me that they like video, they like images, they picked out images. I wanted them to explore Creative Commons. We're not there yet. So hopefully that'll be something that we will continue to look at. We've had little bits of conversations about it. They shared some tips. They, very interestingly, gave me some really good insights into how they learn. We have 3 hours together a week, and as I say, the first time I met them, they'd done no French at all, ever. So it's interesting that they already brought to the table a load of language resources to support their learning French. They're on an accelerated course, they're interested in language, they want to learn quickly. So that was all good. But we've got here some examples of how Wang Zhe, who's the Mandarin speaker, uses an Excel spreadsheet to help keep lists of her language, because she finds it really difficult to move into this Western way of thinking about things. And not only Western, mediated through English, learning French. So she is doing some serious navigating in her brain as she's learning these languages, but she is taking control of that, and she's got some systems that work for her. So she shared these, and as I say, you'll be able to see them in more detail. It was interesting to see just how much they thought about video. It led to a little exchange, an email exchange this weekend. Gertrude got in touch and said, I found this really nice video. Really like it. I've been able to switch the subtitles on, I can listen to it, and at the same time I can read the words, and it's really helping me pick up the patterns of the language. I played through the video, which was actually a polemic piece from a very nationalist French group. So it was quite scary as I watched that. And I got back to her and said, yeah, I can see the language learning potential of this, but are you aware that as you watch this, there are no faces that reflect the true diversity of French society? As you watch this, there's a message that is actually very emotive, calling you towards resisting migration in Europe. Now, she'd come across that message. She's from Hungary, bear in mind a cultural context there as well. There's a really rich learning opportunity going on there for that person. So in terms of skills, I'm not focusing on telling them the skills they need. I'm asking them to surface what they're using and to start a conversation around it. So for 2 weeks, as I say, they're busy students, they do lots and lots of other things. This is an additional activity, I was really pleased with how much they'd thought about this and what they're starting to do, because they will be able to bring together a bit of a set of resources that then we can extend and expand, a community of practice. So why would I want to do this? Well, first of all, why do they want to do it? They're not getting anything for it. And when I asked them, Gertrude said to me, well, because it seemed like a good thing to do. So it was kind of worthy. It seemed like an idea that was worth looking at. Freddie said, well, you know, no way around Mahara. We use Mahara for assessment for level 5 skills. And so it didn't seem like a big ask technically to find my way around. But also I wanted to know more. I wanted to learn more and find out more. Now that's a very different discourse than the one that we're told often by people that we teach with, that students are disengaged, that they're not listening, they're on their phone. I'm afraid in my classes students are on their phone and encouraged to be on their phone because they contribute to the discussion. I tell them, look, I'm not French, I'm a good French speaker, but we as a community are going to increase our language skills, that's why we're here. And what I'm really excited with this group is the amount of conversation they're bringing to that discourse. This was some of their feedback, and again I think it will resonate with us around Mahara. Freddie said, well, you can do anything with Mahara. You can have videos, you can upload text, you can do audio, you can write, you can put hyperlinks, of course. You can manage things and think about how you manage them. So this is a set of transversal skills. Now, hopefully a tweet has just gone out, which is around the DISECO project, an OECD project around skills. You've got a document there that outlines the important skills for the 21st century as identified by UNESCO. This sort of activity sits in those overlaps between those 3 identified sets of skills. Being able to present yourself well online, understanding media and content, understanding what you do when you step into a digital arena, what's open, what isn't, what's out there for borrowing and what isn't. Understanding the creation of your identity, all parts of the discussion that actually then become as well part of the navigating from speaking English to speaking French, and fits very nicely in a language teaching context. They also said, as I mentioned, I guess you guys do a lot of stuff on your phone, and the mobile seems to be the future. And they very quickly corrected me on that. No, the mobile's not the future, the mobile's the present. That's what we do. You know, lose your phone, you will never see a more anxious person in the room than the person who's lost their phone. But we did also have a discussion, because I'm an open educational practitioner, around Creative Commons licensing and whether we should think about the stuff that we create and put out there and whether we want attribution. And that led to some differing answers, again quite culturally specific. And interestingly for me this time, it was actually a Hungarian student, Gertrude, who said, yeah, it's good to know who has progressed this idea, who has taken this to the next step. So she totally got the idea of attribution. And for Freddie it was kind of, well, it's out there, I'm not really that worried, I'd rather not have much of a digital presence anyway. But the very important thing that all of them pointed to was multimodal learning. They expect their learning to be multimodal. They expect to be able to use the tools that are out there. They're integrated already within their lives. And they're kind of a little bit anxious about the generation behind them. They were saying to me, I felt like a grandmother speaking to them at this point. They were saying to me, I'm not quite there yet. They were saying, the next generation, they're on Apple, they're on iPhones already at sort of 10. And what's life going to be like for them? We're going to need to bring some balance back to their lives. So they were quite anxious that they're more than willing to exploit the potential of digital tools. I then sat down and looked at that. This is my last slide. To put it into an educator's perspective, what I'm seeing is what I've seen in my own life as I've moved and hyperlinked through the virtual, is hertagogy, not pedagogy. Hertagogy is self-directed learning. I look at what I need for the next moment, and I use my hyperlink to get there. I find out about it, I research, I reflect, and I adopt that approach, and I'm seeing that in my students as well. And maybe that's why some of them are bored. But what I'm using this project for is to surface their hertagogy, to actually show people what it looks like. There's plenty of theory, some tweets have just gone out around it. These are powerful forces, but the most powerful force is the fact that we can model this. And through Mahara we can model it very effectively, and we can show raised expectations, which is what I'd expect from any educator. Not bringing the bar down, but raising expectations and making sure that we give students the opportunity to show us what they can do. So hopefully you'll be trying some of this out with your students. Thank you.